Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to On the Bright Line podcast, Tales from Recovering Food Addicts from the perspective of a physician, a therapist, and an off-the-wall storyteller. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice. Okay, welcome to today's episode, guys. This is the first inaugural interview episode of On the Bright Line podcast, and we're so very excited to have Tony Wade in our presence virtually. We're gonna just do a lot of conversation today with Tony about his journey along the way. I'm not gonna speak for him. I'm gonna let him speak for himself and just tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to BLE.
Thank you so much. And it's an honor to be here. I've watched all the podcasts that you guys have had, and I love it. I love your dynamic. And I'm honored to be your first interviewee. And I'm glad and I'm happy to set the bar really low. So I started Brightline Eating in, actually, I was doing I'm in a 12-step program for alcohol. And I had a friend there who, she writes these historical plays about this particular 12-step program. And so, and I was doing the plays with her, and I loved it. It was so much fun. But we're going to go to Texas. And at that time, I weighed 381 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. And I knew that if we went there, we're going to get to the airport, and I'm going to be embarrassed because I'm going to have to get 2 seats. And I didn't want to be embarrassed at the airport. So I haven't had a conversation when I told her, I just don't want to, I want to do this beforehand. But I noticed she had started to lose some weight. So I asked her, what are you doing? She says, the 3 magic words, Brightline Eating. Of course, I never heard of it. And then she said that men do very well on it, is what she said. So then I get home and I look it up and I'm like, okay, there's a 300-page book. I'm not going to read yet another 300-page book. Just tell me what I need to do. It's funny because Susan talks about that in the book about to not do that. But I said that's stupid. I need to read the book. So I get the book from the library because I was being frugal. I'm like, I don't want to spend any more money on another book, but I got it from the library and changed my life. I mean, I'm reading this book and it just, everything resonated. For one thing, it's written in a style similar to a book from a 12-step program that I'm familiar with. And the Susan story, how it put different things together from other 12-step food recovery programs, the fellowship, how it's open and welcoming, and of course, the science. Mm-hmm. And so all those things, I was sold. I was convinced this is going to work. And so anyway, then I did the whole things we do, get ready to do it. And there's a plan in the book of what to do on your day one, the 3-day one. And I did all that stuff. I didn't do the, what's funny is I knew I was ready. So I didn't do the whole Last Suppering thing we do. I didn't do that. I did eat the NMF that I had, not my food that I had left. And some things I threw away, but I was ready. I was so ready that I didn't wait for the first of the month. I didn't wait for the first of the week. I started on a Friday, May 17th. That's how weird is that? Because that was just the day that I was ready. And so, and since then, it's been, my journey was incredible. It was just, I lost an amazing amount of weight in a short time. My weight, I was averaging like 10 pounds a month, and I had a lot of weight to lose.
Wow.
So I lost,
I'm jealous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. It really isn't a like it was something that I was doing, that was different than anybody else.
No, some people just lose it quick, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was cool because I weighed myself on the first of the month, and that was like a holiday. It was like, look at this. I put it on Facebook. Look at that. It's like that kind of thing. But the whole thing is I'm telling this big long story, but I met Susan Pierce Thompson in 2019. And she said something to me that really changed the trajectory of where I was going. She says, I had lost 60 pounds by then. Nothing to sneeze at. I don't know where that phrase comes from, why you would sneeze at something. But anyway, but she says, you should start thinking about maintenance. And I was like, I'm like 90 pounds away from maintenance. I read that part in the book, but you kind of gloss over certain, But she said, you start thinking about maintenance. And the thing is, that is the goal. That's where I'm going. That's the point of all this, And so that really changed the way I looked at it. So I read thinking about maintenance. I prepared for maintenance. So when it came to the point where I never had a number in mind of where I wanted to be. I wasn't going to look like that Old Spice model on the horse. That wasn't going to be my thing. So I was, I knew that. I didn't care. And what it came down to was I just one day, it was the first of the month, weighed myself in May of 2020, a year later, and my weight loss had slowed down, and I was starting to have cravings that I'd never had before. I was watching Ozark, and they went out to eat pancakes, and I was like, it just blew my head open. I was like, oh my God, that had not happened. And so thanks to Ozark, I knew I needed to go to the maintenance program. And the next day, that's when I made my first ad, And so I had lost 150 pounds. But the thing is, that's bearing the lead. You went from a 56 waist to a 36 waist, from a 4X shirt to a large shirt. It's awesome. It's wonderful. It's great. That's bearing the lead. The lead is I've maintained that for 3 years. That's the lead,
Yeah. And we were actually discussing that a little bit before we got on here about the maintenance dance. And Bonny was talking about her dance that she's going through, because I'm not in maintenance yet. So I always am looking to glean from the people that are not only are in maintenance, but have maintained for long periods of time, right? Because like you said, you're buried in the lead is that not only have you been in maintenance, not only are you in maintenance, but you've been in maintenance for 3+ years. Am I doing the math? Right? And I think that that's one thing that we haven't talked a lot about on the podcast yet, but in BLE is that the whole point of the program is not only to lose the weight, but it's to be able to maintain it once you've lost it. Yeah. And so I think that you're a testament to that. And I think that's, amazing. Bonny, Robin, do you guys have anything?
Yeah. I mean, we were just talking because somebody had posted in the community this morning, I've lost weight twice before on other programs and I've regained it all. And I think I realize now I'm addicted to losing weight. And I said, for me, I think my previous weight loss attempts were all about being a certain weight or a certain size. And some idea that once I was that size, everything in my life was going to be okay. And I'd just be there and be done. And that's why you regain the weight, because you have no plan for maintaining it. You're just trying, your goal is just to get there. And I said, now my goal is to be healthy and be free of food thoughts. But that there is a dopamine hit from seeing that 10-pound weight. Like you said, that feeling like, oh, I'm 10 pounds down. And there's a thing about that. And that when you hit your goal, that stops happening. And if you haven't created a plan to substitute that dopamine hit every day that you were getting from losing weight, you're going to struggle. And that's part of why that landing the plane plan needs to happen in the middle of your weight loss journey, which again, like you said, is weird to think about. I'm already thinking about what maintenance is going to be like, but you got to start working on, I think, what that plan's going to be. Right. How are you going to get your dopamine hit?
Well, I mean, like for me, you're seeing everyone. You're seeing that it's going down. Wow, it's awesome! Look, it's going down.
Yeah.
And then I started weighing once a week, and then it's like, hey, look at me! I'm the same weight I was. Hey, look, I'm the same weight I was.
And that does not feel good.
But I knew that though. I knew that was beforehand. I prepared for that as much as you can for that.
Yeah.
That it was going to change. That is something, and what I love is Susan she comes out and she'll just say it. Like she says, at the beginning, when you start this program, you're gonna feel like crap.
Yeah.
It's going, and I did. It was awful, but I knew that's what So it wasn't like this. It was being sprung on me all of a sudden. If I'm preparing myself for it, if I think I'm going to stay in weight loss all the time, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah,
that could be an issue.
So do you feel like, have you had any moments where you let up on your program and got sloppy with it and then had to kind of course correct? Has that happened for you?
That is not my story. And actually, I saw an episode where Meagan talked about that, where and let me back up. Susan made this blog about the crystal vase and the teddy bear. And on some level, I kind of wish she hadn't, because it's like people always say, "Oh, I'm not a crystal vaser," and it's like I've been in unofficial BLE Zoom meetings where people are talking, and no one's ever said this to me, And no one's even, I don't think they mean it that way, but it's a similar thing like people in 12-step programs who are, they're old timers, they'll go, to a young kid, well, I spilled more alcohol in my time than you ever drank, So, and then, like I said, no one's ever said this, but like people who are 10s and I'm a 7 might think, wow, look, you're a 7. You can't
almost like diminishing your accomplishment because it was so much easier for you.
Yeah, well, no one said that. See, but that's the way that I felt sometimes. Like I can't say, hey, you know what? This is my story. This is my truth. And I felt kind of like especially when you're talking about people who struggle a lot. But for me though, it's about right now. It's about today. I focus on one day at a time, and I'm not guaranteed that tomorrow this is going to be my story. I'm well aware of that. So I fight complacency. I do not let myself be complacent, because if you feel complacent, you need to come place your ass in a chair here.
Well, and I think what you're mentioning is I talked about like almost being embarrassed by how easy it's been to go on BLE. Is that what you're referring to? Yes. And I do. I mean, because yes, I guess I'm technically a crystal vaser, and but I also feel like I have to be, I think I'm like a 9 or a 10. Like I'm not a 7, but I don't know that I'm like a 10 plus, like a lot of people are on the susceptibility scale. I'm sorry, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
For those that don't speak BLE, let me put that out there. So there's a susceptibility quiz that Susan Pierce Thompson created, and that we all take it, most of us have taken at the beginning of our journey to find out where on the scale we land as far as what our susceptibility is to food addiction. And so what Tony was saying is that he's a 7. I'm about a 9 or a 10, depending on the day. And I know that Bonny has talked about it before. She's the 10 plus, as is Susan Pierce Thompson. Like it's always, it's. And I think for me, it's like I have to be very vigilant, like and diligent in my program. But yeah, it may not be the same as someone who is a 10, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not my journey too, right? Like you said, Tony, like this is my story, and it's like I have to, my story is what it is. So I'm in agreement there. Robin, did you have anything? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tony.
No, but the only thing, and that's not this is just a according to the video that Susan made.
Oh,
the crystal vase thing is not me. I have a crystal vase, or and in my case, I have a crystal Raiders helmet. Is what I have. I don't have a crystal vase in my eyes.
Beautiful. But anyway,
beautiful. But so I have it. So you cherish it. You don't want to mess around and drop it. Is that kind of thing. But the whole thing of about the 7s and 10s. Okay, sure. I'm not a 10, right? But you know what? I weighed 464 pounds at my highest weight. I've broken chairs. I had to get 2 seats on an airplane. All those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I earned my seat here.
Yes, you did. Yeah, and I mean, I'm a 10, but I've never been. I didn't come from super high numbers. I was 70 pounds overweight, which is a lot for somebody that's 5'1.5". But yeah, I didn't come from that kind of number, and yet. I think I'm more at risk for relapse than someone who's a 7 for whatever reason, right? It is what it is. And I think it sounds like you've done a ton of 12-step work in general too. So even before you came to the BLE part, you had done probably a lot of work on your own psyche about how you approach sobriety and addiction. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how those.
And I'm going to segue. I'm going to segue into the question about what your community support is, because I think that you could talk about that in conjuncture 12-step and BLE, right?
Yeah, well, I've been in the 12-step recovery for 31 years. And so yeah, when I came to BLE, it had been 27 years that I'd been in that program. And that's why it's very similar. The two things are very similar in that you have a problem with alcohol, stop drinking. Hello. But then if you have alcoholism, you remove the alcohol and you have the ism, the ISM, I, self, me, and that's left. And then what do I do with that? And it's the same thing in Bright Line Eating. I was at a meeting. My first Zoom meeting I ever went to was in a celebration in Alaska. They invited me. I didn't know anybody. They were just Bright Line Eaters, and And it was so cool. They're having a meal together and stuff, and they were celebrating their weight loss, and it was really cool. And this woman, Molly, she says, so let's say I get down to my bright size body. Now what? And I was like, that's the thing. And if you read the book, it's all over the book. Susan is to to get to your most actualized self. It isn't about that to man, I look awesome in the mirror. Maybe that is your most actualized self, and then maybe that is it. I think for most people, it isn't about that. It's about to get that off the table. Finally, this thing that so many people struggle with, and then be who you were put on this earth to be. That is the thing, and that is so empowering.
Robin, do you have anything to say? I feel like.
Yeah, well, it's that idea of that getting the food and the focus on food out of the way of becoming your true self, your authentic self, and letting that shine, as opposed to the focus on weight and food holding you back from becoming that and growing into who you would like to be. What came up for you, or what were you able to focus on once the food part was out of the way?
Well, coupled with this thing you may have heard of, the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, coupled with that, because I started in 2019, and then 2020, we know what happened. And so what happened was this. So many people say this, one of these days, I'm going to do this. When I retire, I think I'll do this. And then they died. And they never did that. Literally died.
You just verbalized my life fear.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, but the thing is, it doesn't have to be a pandemic. It could be driving to work. It could be, I don't be a fatalist or something, but I'm just being, and I think it was really the pandemic put that, because I started to see people who were dying who had these things they wanted to do. And I always said, man, I want to write a book. One of these days I'm going to write a book. So I decided this is a day, and I did this whole thing, and I made a proposal, and it was accepted, and I've written 3 books now, and my first book, I thanked Susan Peirce Thompson in the book, because it would not have happened but for Bright Line Eating. I actually gave her a copy when she came to visit us a few months ago. I was going to say I sold her a copy, it was a joke, but yeah, so that really is the thing of just trying to see who I am, and not just that. It's other things too, but that is the main thing, is trying to focus my energy into things that are positive for people. I've been trying to do that with 12-step programs too, but there was a really I think I had the ability to write, and I am a writer of other things, but not in this way. I didn't have I had the imposter syndrome. I had fear, all that stuff, and I finally had to say, and partly because of Bright Line Eating, I'm very successful at Bright Line Eating, one day at a time. I was able to apply that to something else.
I mean, I think she talks about, I don't know if it was one of her blogs or in the book, but she talks about, who you perceive yourself to be is based on what you see yourself doing. And I think when you see yourself accomplishing something you haven't before, and maintaining your weight loss and following this program and getting healthy, you just view yourself differently, and it changes that inner self-confidence. And maybe that's what helps overcome the imposter syndrome, right? Is that realization that you really are capable.
Yeah.
I think there's this weird thing we have in this country where we want to, and it's just this country, where there's this obsession with fame and money and looks and all those things, and then you see the people who have all that, and they're freaking miserable.
They're all nuts.
They're a mess. That's right. They're all a mess.
Well, when you see one who's not that way, they're like a unicorn. You're like, and so who are well-adjusted, and they have a long marriage or whatever. And they said, well, that's weird. Look at that. And it's so bizarre that I have had friends who have chased, climbed up the corporate ladder, got to the top of the corporate ladder, and then realized that ladder is leaning up against the wrong wall. That's not where they wanted to go.
That's the ladder to 80 hours a week of working and having no life.
Yeah, that's not joy.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we're not. I mean, my daughter asked me and my wife years ago if we were rich, and I told her, absolutely, we're rich. Are you kidding me? I can go, and I know that when I turn the faucet, that water that's potable is going to come out of there. We have a roof, we have a floor. We have electricity. We have more than enough amenities. We're absolutely rich, just not in the standards of by Americans, no. But look at a lot of the world. Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Anyway, and I try to keep that mindset, and be that gratitude. It's easy to say all this in a meeting or in an interview with you guys, but the hard part is when I'm not here, and
Right.
then I have to deal with life,
Right.
So,
Well, this is a good segue. I'm going to ask, because we've talked about this I'm sorry, I'm losing my words today. On a podcast in the past, what am I trying to say, guys? I can't come up with the
On a
word.
prior podcast.
Prior podcast. Thank you
Episode.
so much. Thank you so much. Being in my own home for some reason makes me lose brain cells. So, I was going to ask. So we've talked about emergency action plans. So I know that you said, being a 7 on this scale, maybe you haven't had emergency situations, and maybe you have. I don't want to make assumptions, but do you have an emergency action plan? If you do, what does that look like?
So I don't have if you're saying if I have an actual written behind glass break and turn, in case of emergency glass, no, I don't have one of those, no. But what I've tried to do is to have a plan. If I know that I'm traveling, I have a plan. For instance, I don't have to use a hypothetical. I can use what's coming up. I'm having this an author's luncheon next week, and so I asked the woman who's organizing. I go, so because she asked me about technical stuff. When am I speaking? Where's the logistic stuff? But then I go, I hate to be a pest, but I have special dietary considerations. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat flour. I don't eat oil. I forgot to say that I don't eat dairy either. I forgot about that part. So I said, can you let me know what they're having? And she says, oh, well, the vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free menu is pasta primavera. Really?
Yeah.
Robin, your face.
I'm like, no. And then I said, no, it really won't work. And then she comes back and she says, well, it's gluten-free. And I'm like, I can read. I read your email, but I didn't say that. But they don't know. And here's the thing: I'm whole foods, plant-based, and but I'm not a vegan. I don't use that word just because it's a loaded term that comes with a lot of I don't want to say baggage. Well, anyway, when I became a whole food plant-based, I did not know that junk food vegan was a thing. I had no idea. And so anyway, there's this whole universe of things that a lot of vegetarians and vegans eat that I do not eat. So knowing all that, with this upcoming event, I have to make a plan, and I have to make a backup plan because and so that is the thing. Because I've seen people fail who or had a struggle. I shouldn't say fail. Had a struggle because their plan wasn't sufficient. So yeah, my main thing is to the Cub Scouts, be prepared as much as I can.
And advocate for yourself is what I'm hearing. You're not afraid to speak up for yourself and advocate for yourself, correct?
No, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I just look. Because I know people say, "Oh, you get in a social situation." I'm hard time saying in my own house too, Meagan. I can't.
I know.
All this type.
Brain cells is gone.
So the social situation, it could be stressful and embarrassing or whatever. I don't care. This is more important than that. Yeah. And if someone asked me, I wouldn't say it like that. I'll say it with y'all. But if they asked me, that's the answer.
Yeah.
This is more important. Because I was going to, when I the part I left out, when a friend of mine had a stroke, and he was younger than me, and he was lighter than me, and I was like, oh my God, that's what's going to happen to me. Mm-hmm. And that was really what started me this whole thing about wanting to lose weight was that, and then I got a hold of my friend, but that's where I was going. That's exactly where I was headed. So it wasn't, I didn't really come here for the vanity. I came here to save my life.
Yeah.
I have a very similar story. I agree. And the vanity is great. Like, don't get me wrong. But I mean, I saw myself on the path of, early death and, not being able to raise my kids. And I decided that wasn't okay. I had to stay alive. I had to become my healthiest self. So I completely understand that sentiment. So.
Absolutely. And I mentioned the whole vegan and vegetarian and hopefully plant-based thing. I'm not a zealot. I mean, far from it. My younger brother Scott started doing Brightline eating a few months after I did, and
Cool.
he eats meat. Yeah, it was awesome. He's my buddy.
That's great.
Yeah, he's my buddy, and so he's the one I commit my food to. So it's really cool to have my brother, one of my brothers, in Brightline eating, and then later my wife started doing it. And I will say that too. With the family, it's the hardest, thing to do. When I read the book, I was like, oh yeah, my wife Beth, she is absolutely a 10. But I know that me going and telling her, hey,
Don't do
you
it.
need it. No, you want to start a fight. That's the, I'm not a blevangelist.
Hilarious.
That's not what I
I
do.
love it.
Yeah, I stole that from my brother too. Scott is
great.
the one who came with blevangelist. Yeah, that's
No,
not what I do.
my husband always says, I don't want to be a born again eater, born again BLE eater to people because nobody likes that. Nobody likes to be preached to. Mm-mm.
No, I can't even be, subtle about it. Like, oh, that's the wrong one. Like, let me leave this book somewhere where she, No.
I'm going to tell you the good word about BLE.
right. She had to, because she saw me for 14 months, and then she was ready to start doing it, and that's what it takes. And if she never did, I would still be here talking to you guys today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a very similar experience with my husband as well. Like he's doing like what do we call it? Slight line eating. Like he's not like, but he's no sugar, no flour, which again is like that was revolutionary in our household. And so for the fact that like we can now be in this place where we can support each other and again, there is no BLE police. We know this, we've heard this. But we do have a constable, right, Tony? But that it's not my job to make sure that he stays on plan or doesn't stay on plan or whatever. But my job is to keep my eyes on my own plate, and that's what I try to do.
Yeah. I'm curious, was there anything that really surprised you about BLE when you started doing this?
There's a lot of women here. I don't know if you guys noticed.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Tony, because we'd love to hear your perspective on that, please.
Well, look, we are the men who in BLE. We are the proud 4%. It is 96%.
Wow. Is it that small?
That's from Susan.
Wow.
96%. Yeah, we are the BLE unicorns.
Wow.
And so the thing, the weird thing is that I do like the unofficial BLE Zoom meetings, and it's mainly women. Sometimes it's just me, the only guy there. Often it is just me.
Yep.
And the 12-step ones,
attest to that.
yes, but in the 12-step ones, there are some guys too. But and I'm also in. We used to have a men's Zoom meeting, but that kind of folded when the pandemic eased up. But I am in a Marco Polo group with a bunch of guys, like 40.
Oh, wow.
And so, but those two worlds, people ask me, what's it like? The difference? We talk about the same stuff. What's funny is the women's and it's not a women's meeting, but those meetings, they talk about hockey. That's more sports talk than I get in the Marco Polo. I'm serious. So you think it would be, but it's not. We talk about the same stuff. It's a little different, but not much. It's because the reason why we're here is issues that I had issues. I don't have just issues. I have a subscription, and so it's like there's things that I need to continue to work on, and I know I need community, and that's what I'm saying. People have other podcasts and stuff, but what you guys came with a community, which I thought was kind of cool. It's a different thing to have friends, and this is, I don't see how successfully, and maybe there's someone who could do it on their own, but in the food environment we live in that we call normal, it's incredibly difficult. This is the hardest.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hear a lot of people in the Facebook community talking about how they're coming back to it because they realize they didn't add community in last time. You know, they
Yeah.
tried to do it on their own, and you know, that go it alone thing is a whole coping strategy that I think addicts use too. And so I think that going alone thing is a part of a denial that you don't really want to embrace sobriety fully, I think.
Well, and that part of it maybe, and to a degree, because there are terms for it, you know, that are masculine, you know, man up, you know, and all that, you know, and you know, just and there is a guys don't typically seek that out. We don't in general.
I don't want to air any dirty laundry, but like I picture my husband in this group, and I'm like, he would never, because he doesn't, you know, he doesn't typically look outside of himself for, you know, for help. And I think that's why that's why the men you know, it's not surprising to me that there's only 4% of men in the BLE community, because I think there is, like you were saying, you know, there's this mentality that you man up, you know, you become stoic and you do it on your own and you don't need help, right? So
right. The phrase "pull yourself up by your bootstraps," which a patient of mine pointed out, is actually physically impossible to do. Think about it, right? So that idea that we have all these sayings, these trite little sayings that tell us that we should be able to do it on our own. And the reality is we can rarely do anything on our own. And that if we actually want to succeed, if success is the goal and maintenance is the goal, we have to build that community and be willing to say, I'm struggling. Can you support me? Can you help me?
Oh, right. Yeah. I've heard people talk about this 12-step program for alcohol. This, you know, that's just a crutch, man. That's just a crutch, which is, I don't understand that at all. If you break your leg, a crutch is something that helps you. If you to hop around on one foot to be macho is stupid. I needed a crutch. I needed a wheelchair. I needed an iron lung, you know. To ask for help, I mean, it's ridiculous, but that's part of the culture. You know, as you know, there are cultural things on men, and there are a lot of cultural things on women. So I mean, a lot of them put on women by men. So yeah, I'm well aware of that. You know, so some of the issues that are talked about in the meetings, and I don't relate to because I'm not a woman.
Yeah.
You know, but I do understand it. You know, I live in this world, so I do understand it as much as I can from the outside.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we have tried to keep an eye on is expanding the reach of BLE as much as we can with this podcast, right? And so one of the things, just to, you know, open it up to the audience, is like one of the reasons why we invited Tony is because we felt like you had such a unique perspective that none of us could bring to the table, right? And so I think that that's really, you know, I would, you know, hearing from a male perspective, especially in this community, is just so unique. And you know, like you said, the unicorn, you know, you guys are the unicorns of the community. It's like, how do we open this up more so that more men, women, whoever are comfortable coming in and understand what this is and understand how this program can work for them, you know? So not that I'm asking anybody you know, around the Zoom meeting to solve this problem right now. I'm just saying, like, I just wanted to, you know, put that out there. This is definitely, you know, what part of our mission of this podcast is to spread the word as much as we can. So, Tony, I have a question. If you could say one thing to your former self when you were thinking about going on BLE, well, you kind of just did it, but even thinking back to yourself before,
like before you left in.
Yeah, before you left in, before you were ready for this, what would you be? What would that thing be? Could you have said something to yourself to get you to the table sooner?
Yeah, I thought about that question. I don't really know that. I mean, I think you're ready when you're ready, you know, and there were times in my life when I thought I was ready to do something, but I mean, and I did, I did the Atkins thing and the other, I didn't do a bunch of different diets. I did
Did you ever
some.
juice? I did that. That was gross.
I didn't do that one. No,
Oh,
I didn't do a lot really, but I think for me, I just have to be ready. And I'm always conscious. People ask me, hey, what tips or suggestions or that kind of thing do you have? And I'm like, I don't give those. I can tell you my experience.
Yeah.
And with the caveat that everybody's different. Everybody's different. So I don't know what's going to work for whoever, I have no idea. People, and I get this too. Oh, you're a rock star. Wow. You're nailing this. And I'm like, you're a miracle. Wow. No, I'm not the miracle. I'm not a rock star. You know what the miracle is? Bright line eating. I'm just some guy who's doing this thing that was already there, so I don't get it twisted. I'm aware of the fact that there's this program out there and it can work. Actually, the cool thing about Bright Line Eating is that she put the program in a book that you can get from the library.
Yeah.
The maintenance, the whole thing is really, to be sure, there are nuances and other things that have been added. The whole Resume book is awesome and there's other things. But if you just want to do the, get to a bright sized body, this is my experiences, and my brother's experience, who's never been part of the membership or anything. He calls himself a bright booker. He almost got sued by Susan. That's a good story. I'll tell you some other time. Not really, but it's a funny story. But but he's called himself a bright booker, and the only thing he's done is use the book, and he's watched the vlogs, and he's been in the men's Marco Polo thing. So.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it here, that you can be part of the membership, right? Obviously, like you can join right now. The way the program's working is there's 3 times a year. There's an entrance point for the boot camp. And then once you're done with the boot camp, you can join the membership and you have access to, amazing material. And I will tell you, like, it is amazing material that Susan has produced and put out and made available to the membership. Now, as Tony was saying, you don't have to do any of that. You can get the book from the library. You can buy the book, you can, whatever. And I have recently found out, and I'm so impressed by, there are unofficial outside the membership support groups. If they're not part of the membership and they're looking for support, I would definitely endorse, all of the unofficial stuff that's going on right now, because it's a good, it's a great
Support
group.
is support. I mean, wherever you can get it, as long as it's people that are, committed to following the plan. And we've talked about that before. You got to align with people that are in the same place that you are, right? You don't want to be with the people that are like, well, but I eat whatever and it doesn't trigger me and that's okay, right? And like you gotta make sure that the people you're meeting with are really having a meeting and providing that support. But yeah, I agree it. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, if the membership's not in your budget, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's lots of other ways to access the program.
I appreciate that, because that's been a thing, and I've brought this up to some of the powers that be, that why aren't these meetings more not mainstream? I don't know. I mean, because there are many parts of Bright Line Eating that are unofficial.
Yeah.
Mastermind groups are not run by by Bright Line Eating. And yet they're mentioned all the time. So why aren't these meetings that have been around for 4 or 5 years now, brought up more often? Because they're a great resource, So there are people there I know who we've gotten close to and met in real life because of that. And so anyway, and other things too, the brighter groups or whatever, those aren't maintained by Bright Line Eating. So
right.
Yeah.
And Tony's talking about the bright. So most areas of the country have like a brighter
or brightest.
Facebook group. So like we have Brightest Northwest here in the Pacific Northwest. That's what we have. And so it actually encompasses Washington and Oregon and a bunch of, it's that some of Southern Canada, BC. So anyway, all that to say, there are resources out there, and we, as a unofficial BLE podcast, we are definitely here
we're
to
not
support.
official either.
Yep.
Yeah, we are not official at all. So yeah, we definitely we're here to support that endeavor. So I would like to turn to a little bit of fun question time. I want to know, what did you want to be when you grew up, Tony?
I wanted to be on this podcast. I wrote it down when I was 10. It's amazing, and now my dream has come true.
I
It's
love it.
amazing.
Perfect answer.
So thank you.
You're so welcome.
What's funny is I at one point I remember wanting to be an ichthyologist when I was a nerdy little kid. Because I thought the word sounded cool. I think that's why. And then it turns out I'm kind of afraid of fish. I think I've never actually fished in my life. Anyway, so I didn't really. I think it was really wanting to write. I mean, I look back on it, and in fourth grade, I wrote this book that was in the library, and they kept it in the actual library.
Cool.
Yeah. So. But I didn't know. I mean, I didn't. I do. I have met some people who they knew what they wanted to do when they were a kid, and they became that. Yes.
Yep.
So I do know people like that, but I wasn't like that. I didn't have a long range plan at all.
Okay, I love it. I love that being on the podcast was part of your dream.
Absolutely.
And then the final kind of heavy question, if you were writing the next chapter of your life, what do you hope is in that part of your story?
Well, primary eating. So I've been sober for a long time, right? And a long timer in it's funny because now I'm like an old timer in that 12-step program. But a long timer in primary eating is like 8.
Yeah.
Which is nothing that, again, just needs that. But at the same time, and we had a discussion about this recently about how people say, I'm always on day one. And for me, because every day is day one, I understand the principle they're talking about. I get it. I just focus on today. I can't stay bright on the things I did yesterday. I have to do something today. However, that said, my day one was May 17th of 2019. And I know a lot more now. I have a lot more experience and tools than I did then. For one thing, the Resume book wasn't written then. The cookbook wasn't written then, which actually is a good tool. It gets kind of short shrift when it comes to the writings, but there's some good stuff in that book that isn't in the other books, by the way. And so I guess the point of it is that, I'm just, there's just, some things that I've been able to put in my toolbox. I can pick up and I can use if I want to, if I choose to. And that's the thing. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, it's good. Bonnie, Robin, any thoughts from you guys?
I just really appreciate you coming on. I think hearing different experiences is so valuable because I think among the BLE community, there's just a million different types of stories. And I think if somebody can hear a story that resonates with them personally, it really helps them decide they can do this. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah. Wonderful message that you're sharing.
I appreciate it.
Well, Tony, what do you have to say? Any last closing words?
For me, just this has totally changed my life. Revolutionize is the word that I use. Revolutionize my life. And I just want to close with this. In September of 2019, I write for the local newspaper, and I do a humor column, and then I do a history column as well. And so in my humor column, sometimes I use it for something because I have a platform, as it were. I use it for other things and not just trying to be a funny guy. And so in that, I wrote about my flatline eating experience for the first time in September of 2019. And actually, that's how I first met Susan. I got an email from Susan. Her assistant saw it, and I was like, oh, an email from Susan Pierce Thompson. I did the internal scoop. But I how you doing, Susan? Thank you very much for what you had to say. Put it inside. I was like, God, dude. But anyway, in that column, what I said was, why wouldn't I? Now I said I've lost 63 pounds, but I have a lot of weight to go. So why wouldn't I wait until I got to my goal weight and then write this column? You know, and I said, here's why. And I started getting emotional thinking about it. You know, because I am 100% sure that this is going to work, that I'm going to get to my goal weight, and I've never felt like that in my life. That's what I said then, and that's what happened, you know, a number of months later.
That's
You know,
awesome.
so that is my you know, the thing that stuck with me is that from the get-go, when I read that book, I had hope. I had huge hope to be thin. Oh my goodness. I had never imagined, you know, I wanted to lose some weight, but I never imagined I could get down to the body that I'm in now. That wasn't on the, you know, on the horizon at all, you know. But to get to that point, I mean, it was life changing, you know. So yeah, so that's what I'm with.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
It's beautiful.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Tony. We really appreciate your time and your amazing story. I know that's going to resonate with people, and people will be really excited to hear more from you. So that is our.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that last part because Sprinkles was snoring. What you
Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't have an appearance by Sprinkles today. Apologies. Tony is a Sprinkles fan.
She has banged into the table a couple times and shook the camera, but otherwise, no sounds.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And that is our episode for today, guys. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Bye.